Welcome to the Daily Globe. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The world watches the Pacific with a sense of anticipation and unease, as the tides of history seem to shift before our eyes. A single handshake on the White House steps sends ripples across the globe, symbolizing not just diplomacy, but the start of a new chapter in international relations. On July 22, 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump and Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. finalized a trade agreement that goes far beyond tariffs and quotas, reaching into the very fabric of regional alliances and economic futures. This deal marks a pivotal shift in global power, signaling a new era of strategic realignment in the Indo-Pacific, where old alliances are tested and new partnerships are forged. It's not just about trade, it's about sovereignty, survival, and the future of international cooperation in a world increasingly shaped by aggressive bilateral negotiations and shifting loyalties. The agreement is a barometer for the escalating US-China rivalry, with the Philippines making a decisive pivot between two giants, each vying for influence in the region. For the US, it's a victory in reshaping global trade, using economic leverage to build a loyal network in a region of immense strategic value, and sending a clear message to competitors. The numbers, 19% tariffs, billions in trade, zero tariff access for US goods, are the building blocks of a much larger story, one that will impact millions of lives and set new precedents for future deals. This deal forces us to confront whether the era of multilateralism is ending, replaced by transactional, power-based deal-making that prioritizes national interests over global consensus. As we explore the pact's context and consequences, remember, this is more than a news report. It's a critical juncture in modern history, where the choices of today will echo for generations. What happens between Washington and Manila today could set the stage for the global economic order of tomorrow, shaping the balance of power and prosperity for years to come. To grasp the weight of the 2025 trade agreement, we must look back at the US-Philippines alliance, an 80-year relationship forged in war, colonialism, and shared interests. After independence in 1946, the two nations remained bound by defense treaties and deep economic ties. The US was the Philippines' primary economic partner and cultural influence, weathering political shifts and crises. But recent years saw Manila drawn toward China's economic orbit, balancing old ties with new opportunities. This balancing act created uncertainty in Washington, especially as tensions rose in the South China Sea. Trade has always been central, but imbalances, like the $5 billion US deficit in 2024, became flashpoints. The Trump administration's focus on reducing deficits made a new agreement inevitable. Manila faced a stark choice: risk isolation or reaffirm its US alliance, even at significant cost. The 2025 deal is the product of this complex, evolving partnership. The US-Philippines deal is rooted in President Trump's aggressive second-term trade strategy, which sought to fundamentally reshape America's global economic relationships. After his 2024 re-election, the administration imposed a sweeping 10% tariff on most imports, sending shockwaves through global markets and signaling a new era of protectionism. The message was clear. Countries that failed to secure new trade agreements by August 1, 2025 could face tariffs as high as 50%, a move that threatened to upend established supply chains and business models worldwide. The Philippines was hit with a sudden 17% tariff in April, a sharp increase that sent shockwaves through its export sector, with the threat of a 20% tariff looming if no agreement was reached in time. With 16% of its exports bound for the US, Manila faced an existential threat to key industries and millions of jobs, as factories and workers braced for the impact of rising costs and shrinking demand. The US used market access as powerful leverage, demanding greater reciprocity and upending decades of multilateral trade policy, forcing the Philippines to make difficult choices about its economic future. The Philippines wasn't alone. Japan, Vietnam, and Indonesia all scrambled to negotiate before the deadline, each facing their own set of challenges and domestic pressures. This created a high-stakes race, with each country vying to keep its goods competitive in the lucrative American market, while also trying to protect their own industries from sudden shocks. In this high-pressure environment, President Marcos Jr. and his team traveled to Washington, seeking a way forward and hoping to secure a deal that would safeguard the livelihoods of millions back home. The stakes were clear: secure a deal or face devastating tariffs that could cripple entire sectors of the Philippine economy and disrupt regional stability. The outcome would shape not just trade, but the region's strategic balance for years to come. The clock was ticking, and every decision carried enormous consequences. On July 22, 2025, Trump and Marcos Jr. announced a new bilateral agreement. The Philippines secured a 19% tariff, avoiding the threatened 20%, but it's still a steep price. In return, the U.S. won zero tariff access for all its goods in the Philippine market, a major win for American exporters. Key sectors like autos, agriculture, and pharmaceuticals stand to benefit most. The deal's imbalance is clear: the Philippines pays, the U.S. gains. Crucially, the agreement also includes a commitment to enhanced military cooperation, deepening the strategic alliance. Details remain vague, but the message to China and the region is unmistakable. The lack of transparency mirrors other recent U.S. deals: swift, headline-driven, and light on public details. For now, the world must judge the pact by its top-line terms. The economic and geopolitical stakes are enormous. For the Philippines, the deal is a mix of relief and pain. Locking in a 19% tariff kept Philippine goods competitive with neighbors, but it's still a heavy burden. U.S. importers will pay more, likely passing costs to consumers, threatening demand for Philippine exports. Domestic industries now face a flood of cheaper U.S. goods, especially in autos and agriculture. Job losses and business closures are real risks, even as consumers may benefit from lower prices. The government gambled that preserving U.S. market access and security ties outweighed the costs. Manila frames the deal as a necessary step in a turbulent world, hoping it can be improved over time. For now, adaptation is the only option. From Washington's view, the deal is a clear win. Zero tariff access for U.S. goods gives American farmers and manufacturers a major edge in the Philippine market. For states producing soy, wheat, cars, and pharmaceuticals, this is a tangible victory. But the 19% tariff on Philippine imports means higher prices for U.S. consumers and inflationary risk with political consequences. Strategically, embedding military cooperation in the deal solidifies the U.S.-Philippines alliance and counters China's influence. The agreement transforms trade into a geopolitical tool, drawing Manila closer to Washington. This is the fifth such deal for the Trump administration, establishing a repeatable template. Threaten tariffs, win concessions, lock in security ties. The model is systematic, reshaping global trade one country at a time. For the White House, the Philippine deal validates its entire strategy. The ripple effects are just beginning. The U.S.-Philippines agreement is sending shockwaves through the Indo-Pacific, signaling a major shift in the region's economic and strategic balance. It sets a new benchmark: 19% U.S. import tariff for zero tariff access to American goods, raising the bar for future trade negotiations and putting pressure on other nations to reconsider their own trade policies. Southeast Asian economies now face mounting pressure to make similar concessions if they want to remain competitive in the global market and maintain access to lucrative American consumers. The pattern is clear: bilateral deals with tiered tariffs, each one closely tied to strategic alignment with the U.S., are becoming the new norm across Asia. Indonesia, Vietnam, and Japan have all struck their own versions of these deals, creating a new economic hierarchy in Asia, where access and influence are increasingly determined by ties to Washington. This dynamic is redrawing the region's economic and security landscape, pushing countries closer to Washington and, in many cases, further away from Beijing's orbit. For nations with disputes with China, these trade deals double as security pacts, offering both economic benefits and a sense of protection against regional threats. Beijing sees this as a coordinated attempt to contain its rise, raising the risk of regional fragmentation and intensifying the competition for influence in Asia. Instead of unified blocs, Asia may become a patchwork of US-centered deals, each country navigating its own path between the world's two superpowers. The US-Philippines Pact is a critical piece in this evolving puzzle, setting the tone for future agreements and alliances. Its ripple effects will shape Asia's future, influencing not just trade, but the very balance of power across the continent for years to come. Beyond official statements, the deal's impact is hotly debated by experts, business leaders, and citizens. Analysts see the 19% tariff as a pragmatic move, better than the alternative, but still costly. Some praise the deal as a necessary compromise, others warn it threatens Philippine sovereignty and local industries. Filipino farmers and manufacturers now face tough competition from cheaper U.S. imports. Protests in Washington during Marcos's visit showed the depth of concern among Filipino Americans and migrant workers. In the U.S., exporters celebrate new opportunities, while importers and consumers brace for higher prices. The deal creates winners and losers on both sides, highlighting the contradictions of modern trade. Understanding its true impact requires listening to voices beyond the negotiating table. The story is still unfolding on the ground. The July 2025 U.S.-Philippines trade agreement is more than an economic pact. It's a sign of the times. It captures the tension between bilateralism and multilateralism and the strategic rivalry shaping the world. The deal gives Manila security and market access, but at a steep economic cost. For the U.S., it's a victory in reshaping global trade and strengthening its Indo-Pacific position. The asymmetric terms reflect a new transactional era in international relations. The consequences, higher prices, tougher competition, shifting alliances, will be felt in both countries. This isn't an endpoint but a new beginning, setting a course for the future of global order. The world will be watching as this evolving good deal continues to unfold.